All right, let's talk about one of the biggest hopes, and maybe one of the biggest myths, in the housing market today. It's this idea that a flood of new homes is right around the corner, ready to make everything affordable again. But, what if the data tells a completely different story? So, are you one of the millions of people kind of holding your breath, waiting for prices to finally drop so you can buy a home? It's a super common strategy, and for a lot of folks, it's all pinned on this one single, massive demographic shift. And that shift has a pretty catchy name: the silver tsunami. The idea is actually pretty simple. As the huge baby boomer generation gets older, they'll either downsize or pass away, and boom, millions of homes get released onto the market. And all that new inventory, at least in theory, should fix the supply crisis and bring prices back down to earth. For years, this has been the great hope. But here's the thing. New data is really starting to challenge this whole idea. It's suggesting we're not looking at a giant tsunami at all. We're looking at something much, much smaller. More like a ripple, not a wave. This quote from a recent Codality report it captures the new reality perfectly. Instead of some powerful, market-reshaping wave, the data's pointing to a really subtle shift. A soft, rolling wave, not a dramatic flood.
So, okay, let's put a number on that ripple. In just the last year, about 340,000 homes in the U.S. were transferred through inheritance. Now that sounds like a lot, right? And it is a big number for sure, but we really need to see it in context.
Because those 340,000 homes, they only made up about 7% of all property transfers. Now here's what's really interesting. That 7% is actually a record high. But, and this is a big but, it's a record created because traditional home sales have slowed way down. That makes the slice of inherited homes look bigger in comparison. So what we're seeing is a shift in market share, not some massive surge in supply. So why isn't this big wave happening? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is policy. And there is no better place to see this in action than California, where specific tax rules are basically locking homes out of the market.
In California, this whole trend is way more dramatic. Inherited properties make up a staggering 18% of all transfers there. That's more than double the national average. But this isn't leading to more homes for sale. Actually, it seems to be doing the exact opposite.
Get this. For the first time ever, the number of homes passed down to heirs in California more than doubled the number of brand new homes that were sold. I mean, think about that. This is a massive chunk of the market, and it's playing by a totally different set of rules. So why aren't the heirs selling? Well, it pretty much all comes down to California's unique tax rules, which create what's called a lock-in effect. You see, property tax increases are capped, and kids can actually inherit their parents' super low tax base. This means an heir could be paying taxes on a home's value from decades ago, saving them thousands of dollars every single year. The financial incentive to just keep the home and not sell it is absolutely huge. But it's not just about what happens after boomers are gone, it's also about what they're doing right now while they're still in their homes. And the second major reason for this quiet tsunami is a fundamental shift in behavior. Boomers are simply not moving. Just look at the generation born back in 1938. Over 22% of them moved in their late 60s and early 70s. But for boomers born just 8 years later, that number drops all the way down to 17%. They are aging in place way more than previous generations, and that slows down the whole natural cycle of homes coming back onto the market. And here's why their decision to stay put has such a gigantic impact. This generation owns a historically large share of the nation's homes. At age 65, the classic boomer group owned 50% more homes than the generation that came just 10 years before them. So when a group this huge decides to stay put, the entire market feels it. So what's the real solution here? I mean, when you put it all together, the tax lock-in effect and this aging-in-place trend, the picture becomes pretty darn clear. The cavalry isn't coming to save the housing market. The report really says it best. We just cannot count on demographic destiny to solve this affordability crisis. Waiting around for a generation to move or pass on their homes, it's just not a viable housing strategy. The forces keeping these homes off the market are simply too strong. So, if we can't wait for the silver tsunami, what does this actually mean for anyone out there trying to buy a home? What's the real practical takeaway from all this data? All right, let's just boil this all down. Here are the key takeaways. First, that silver tsunami is a myth. It's a slow rolling wave at best. Second, this combination of tax incentives and personal choices means millions of homes are effectively locked out of the open market. And finally, waiting for demographics to solve our supply problem is, unfortunately, a losing bet. And all of this leaves us with one final
pretty stark conclusion. The solution to the housing crisis, it isn't going to come from waiting, and it's not going to come from inheritance. If America really wants more housing supply, there's only one way to get it. We have to build it.